When we start adding volume, I'm going to start at the torso and work my way around. And one of the first things you can see, it's actually quite funny, is this rib cage and where the external oblique is going and all of that stuff. So definitely still geared towards the female. So we need to, from a side view, take this and just start to expand it. Now keep in mind that we are still in the transpose master. So if you want to save this subtool, if you want to save progress, then the best thing to do is actually to save the project. So you can save transpose master project from transpose master here, and that'll be probably the easiest or fastest way to get in and start to save something that you can work with later on. So I'm going to save this as 07. And it saves all the information. Saving a Z tool that can start to confuse it, and the system starts to lose track of what subtool goes where and all of that stuff. And it's kind of painful to refine that. Okay, project is saved, so we're gold. So now I'm just going to give him a bit more of a belly. A couple of things to keep in mind. I'm not adding volume at the rib cage there. Remember, this is the 6th, 7th, 8th rib. Where I'm adding volume is in the abdomen area, the abdominals, and basically the stomach. But I'm also kind of leaving this up here near the xiphoid process. I'm leaving that alone a little bit, letting it stay close to the rib cage, and really just letting the abs kind of extend out here. Now, if somebody does breathing exercises, Qigong or something like that, then you know the stomach kind of is going to develop a bit more of a belly. If they're drinking a lot of beer, you know, you're going to get the beer belly, all of that. Do that to whatever level you want. Okay, whatever level you want this character's anatomy to be at. So we've established essentially one really key element, which is the farmost curve for the belly. We've left intact the area around the 6th, 7th, 8th rib. That it's really thin. The external oblique is really thin in this area anyways. But we do have an area that we need to adjust, and that is how the external oblique is going to come in and connect to that rib. So it's not the rib portion, it's the portion directly below it that we connect or adjust. And also the external oblique needs a little adjustment with that skeleton. It's not fitting correctly, so I missed that. Just move that in. Okay, and then let's straighten that out. There we go. Okay. So now we need that external oblique. Now let's turn perspective on. I'm going to turn the floor off. And I'm going to actually mask out everything but the external oblique. Go into clay buildup. Set my stroke to 0.05. And my depth in bed, I'm going to set that down to 9. Okay, remember, depth in bed is the same as going brush, depth, embed. I just have that set up to a hotkey. Okay, and again, this white line that I've drawn right there, that's the line of the ribs, the ilium. I'm focused on the space between them, and I'm going to leave the white areas completely alone. So I want to build the external oblique up a touch. So I'm just going to add some volume in there. And have it match the abdominals a little bit more. Okay, you can make this a little bulkier by making it overhang the ilium. Not a bad way to go. One way I might do that is I'm just going to come in and get the cross section of that bulk first using clay buildup, and then I'll get the muscle striations in there later. Okay, just want to build that down a little bit. Okay. And then just hide everything so that I don't have any normals messing with me from the other subtools or polygrouped parts. And just kind of get this intact. Remember, you can press Alt and that'll carve in a little bit, and then you build back up. The key to this, of course, is your directionality and long strokes. And if you really want to get rid of a certain directionality, you do what I'm doing right now. You just press Alt, and that'll carve in and start to really erase those cross contour lines that I'd had before. Okay, there we go. Clear our mask, and that's gonna work. So, well, sort of work. We need that external oblique to fill out here. I don't want that to come in and start to represent a more female waist. Okay. I'm a little happier with that. You can still give him a little waist. Okay. Feel more comfortable with that. Now, where would we go from here? We're still on torso. I kind of like the idea of focusing on the serratus anterior. So I'm going to unmask, mask these guys, and invert that. I'm going to use the inflate brush, and I want to inflate the serratus anterior a fair bit. Okay, you may want to just focus on the serratus and get some of this. Just make sure to check what it looks like often. So that looks fine. Except for I've got a bit of a hit here and a flat there, so I don't want that. Okay, next. It's pretty obvious what should be next. That lat should really get in and get that lat established. So in terms of the lat, one of the key elements that we really want to focus on is just how this is going to come down and really help us establish a more masculine figure. So one of the things I like to do is just take from the clavicle and just draw it as though there's basically a shield on their back, and that lat starts to fill in this volume, moving into the ribs. So let's just come from the back. So we can do it from the front, but inflate might be the best option. You can also try magnify. If you haven't tried magnify before, you definitely want to get in there and use it. It was actually it was developed for things like this. Okay, I'm gonna give the scapula muscles a small bend. And remember, the bulk of that lat is happening underneath that scapula. That's the key thing. But make sure it stays connected. Don't let it get too bulky or too out of control. And it'll start to make more sense, and it'll start to look better when we develop the tricep as well. But that looks okay to me. Pectoralis. Very thin in the female. We're going to work on it for the male. And where are we going to add volume? Right now we've got it pretty much as a straight shot. Okay, but in terms of the volume of the pectoralis, where do you think we're going to really try to bulk this thing up? Now obviously we're going to bulk it up a little bit along the sternum. We're obviously not going to bulk it up much towards the attachment. Okay, but is it a linear progression in terms of it's bulkier in the towards the sternum and less towards the attachment? Well, not really. You want to try to think about this halfway point, and we really want to be adding volume kind of equally along those lines, and then have it taper down after that halfway point. So the halfway point really determines this area. It's going to stay largely the same, but the rest of it, that's not. So inflate is going to be my choice. But you can also use magnify. Magnify is going to add a little bit too much width, or it just pushes out all the way around. Inflate is just going to go straight up, and it's going to affect me from this view, which is pretty much what I want. Okay, now the clavicular portion of the pectoralis, it's not going to get as much bulk as the lower portion, but it's important to, be keeping that on the list, bulking that up. Okay, keep going. Okay. There we go. Feel okay, although I am going to inflate a little bit more in this bottom portion. Alright, there we go. So now we've got pectoralis, we've got the external oblique, we've got the serratus anterior, and we've got the lats. Those are those kind of primary muscles that we wanted to get. We've got a few more minutes. Well, no, let's leave it at this. In the next component, we'll start to look at the arm, the deltoid, all of that stuff.